Welcome to List of 13. I'm Megan.
And I'm Rob. Thanks for watching. We make lists on various topics, find 13 awesome facts, and present them to you.
If you have tristodectophobia, this video may not be for you. Otherwise, enjoy the list.
Here at Lists of 13, we like cars. Some may even say we have an unhealthy obsession with them.
It doesn't matter what kind of car it is, we are interested in them. Fast cars, slow cars, new cars, old cars, American cars, imports, any kind of cars.
In this series, we are talking about cars. All kinds of cars. The good, the bad, and the things that you probably didn't know.
Throughout the years, there have been many car brands started in the United States. Some of them have been around for many years, like Chrysler and Ford. Others are very new, like Tesla and Rivian. Throughout the history of the automotive manufacturer, there have also been many that have fallen to the wayside. This is what we are talking about today. We present to you 13 American car companies that are now gone.
Number 1, Hummer, which operated from 1992 through 2010. The initial prototypes of the military Humvee were delivered to the U.S. military by AM General in 1982. The first contract for their production was worth $1.2 billion. This rig was a hit with the military. Then there was a civilian model, the Hummer. GM purchased the line from AM General in 1999. They began building and distributing them worldwide. However, amid concerns over fuel economy and safety, and in the face of several failed sales deals, Hummer was shut down. There is now a vehicle called the Hummer EV, but it is being produced under GMC, so Hummer is in fact no longer a company.
Good riddance. Number 2, Plymouth, which operated from 1928 to 2001. Chrysler introduced Plymouth as the low-cost alternative to its other cars. Its high-flying and futuristic design kept the brand strong in the 1950s and 60s, but badge engineering, or slapping the Plymouth label on other Chrysler products, destroyed this identity in the 1990s. The PT Cruiser was planned as a Plymouth, thought of as a way to recapture an old, original spirit, but Plymouth was scheduled to be shut down before the release.
Again, good riddance.
I guess the difference, I think, between them and Hummer is originally Plymouth, I think, had some cool cars. I didn't ever really think of that about Hummer.
But in the 80s and 90s, you had the Dodge Omni and the Plymouth Horizon, or the Dodge Stratus and the Plymouth Breeze.
I get it.
They were just the same thing.
I get it. I understand why they came to their demise. I'm just saying they at least started from a good place with good intentions.
True. Number 3, Kaiser Frazer, which operated from 1945 to 1951. Automotive executive Joseph Frazer and industrialist Henry Kaiser came together as partners with this short-lived but influential automotive manufacturer. While the big three were selling pre-war models after World War II, Kaiser Frazer was the first group to introduce a totally new car. They did well until 1951, when Kaiser and Frazer split over differing opinions on how to sell their cars. Kaiser Motors would continue, eventually buying Willys Overland, the creators of Jeep. Kaiser Motor was later purchased by the American Motor Corporation due to lack of capital.
It's a very short period of time to run a business, especially automotives. I can't imagine what the cost was for that, for it to be such a short-lived period of time.
Making cars is not cheap.
Right. Precisely my point. Number 4, Packard, which operated from 1899 to 1958. Packard was conceived as a luxury model. It cost more than 4 times as much as a comparative Oldsmobile. This luxury image would prove vital to sustaining the brand even through the Great Depression. When they began introducing mid-priced vehicles, they ran into problems. They were unable to compete with the big three. Price wars among the big auto corporations and a dangerous merger with Studebaker drove the manufacturer into the ground.
Which is really sad because, in my opinion, Packards were really, really nice cars.
Yeah, they're definitely of that era where cars were big, heavy, sexy. Really, I can't think of a Packard I've seen that wasn't a really nice looking car.
Which is probably why they cost 4 times an Oldsmobile's price.
Right. Speaking of Oldsmobile.
Yes. Number 5, Oldsmobile, which operated from 1897 until 2004. Originally independent, Oldsmobile was purchased by General Motors in 1908. Its rocket V8 engine and reputation for speed made it a famously powerful and adventurous brand throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The 80s and 90s were a time that Oldsmobile had fallen behind in performance. Cutting corners and rebadging efforts slowly toppled this automotive giant.
I guess it goes to show that cutting corners doesn't ever really work.
True.
It'll catch up with you eventually. Number 6, Studebaker, which operated from 1852 to 1966. This family of a German descendant, the Studebakers, were originally blacksmiths who started a carriage and wagon business. They marketed their first automobile in 1912 and built a reputation for providing a reliable quality product. They survived the Great Depression and produced innovative car designs throughout the 40s that would influence other producers for decades. Price wars between GM and Ford nearly destroyed Studebaker in 1953. They prolonged their life by 13 years at Packard's expense in a merger.
Yeah, that's another car that in my opinion is just a really, really amazing car. Packard was awesome, Studebaker was awesome, and it's really sad that neither of them could survive past the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes sense that they would have merged. Their cars kind of had a similar look, feel, luxury, very nice looking cars. Unfortunately, they just couldn't compete with the big three.
We want to thank you again and tell you how much it means for you to watch this video.
We would really appreciate if you would do some things to help our channel grow and reach more people.
We would be so grateful for you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, ring the bell, and share this video with your friends. As a result, YouTube will share our video with more people.
Number 7, DeLorean, who operated from 1975 to 1982. John DeLorean, best known for designing the striking GTO with Pontiac, among other cars, and for being the youngest GM executive in history. John DeLorean founded the DeLorean Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan on October 24, 1975, using seed capital from Hollywood stars and the British government. DeLorean built a manufacturing plant in Northern Ireland to produce the DMC-12. Initial vehicles suffered from poor quality control and testing, and the features, cost, and design of the car were met with mixed enthusiasm in the States. Struggling to break even, DeLorean was caught in an FBI sting and accused of being a drug trafficker in 1982. He was later acquitted of all charges, but the trial ruined his reputation. The cars gained a cult following, and a new DeLorean Motor Company opened in 2016, promising to build new DMC-12 models in the future. It has been 6 years and they haven't done it yet, but who knows, maybe they will in the future.
Here's to 2023.
Right.
And it not being a really slowpoke car when they get around to remaking it.
Like it was when they originally made it.
Right. It was a shiny paperweight.
It's a good way to put it.
I know. Number 8, DeSoto, which operated from 1928 to 1961, was created by Chrysler as a mid-priced model but was doomed to failure almost immediately. Chrysler had two companies, DeSoto and Dodge, to compete with in the mid-priced car range. This competition hurt both companies. Repeated mismanagement by Chrysler and the 1958 recession would eventually put DeSoto to bed.
Number 9, Pontiac from 1926 to 2010. Like many brand names on this list, Pontiac was introduced as a cheaper alternative to a more expensive luxury car. Leadership in the late 50s, among them John DeLorean, who was mentioned earlier, made Pontiac into a fast-racing, exciting muscle and road car. Fuel shortages and safety concerns curbed this image in the 70s and 80s, resulting in a slow decline until GM's 2008 Chapter 11 reorganization.
I know that you're not really a fan of Pontiacs, but I did own two of them, and I was happy with those cars.
And they're not as much much horrible cars. Yes, the Sunfire was just a slightly faster looking Cavalier, unlike back in the day when they were actually fast, muscly cars, or before that, economy cars with lower prices than other General Motors.
Number 10, Mercury, which operated from 1938 to 2011. Mercury was a mid-priced car at its introduction, designed to fit between the cheaper Ford models and the luxurious Lincoln line. As sales slumped in the mid-1940s, Lincoln and Mercury merged. The faithful Marquis and Grand Marquis models were exceptionally popular from the 1960s to the 2000s, but Mercury's aging and narrowing demographic made them unsustainable.
Which is kind of sad in some ways. In other ways, if you have a car company that's not selling cars, the most natural thing to happen is for the company to die out. Number 11, Tucker, which operated from 1944 till 1950. After World War II, American consumers wanted a new car design. The big three were not giving it to them. Preston Tucker believed he could fill the void with the Tucker 48 Series sedan. The prototype had a disastrous premiere. It was loud and boiled coolant along with many other issues. Later prototypes did better, and to fund the car, Tucker sold accessories and spots on waiting lists to eager consumers. This resulted in an SEC investigation and trial. All charges were dropped and Tucker was found innocent, but the damage was done, and under heavy burden of debt, the Tucker Corporation folded.
I've never heard of Tucker, but what I will say is it seems like if there were some car companies that people didn't want around, they had some major charges that were filed at them, went to court, they got dismissed, and then magically they couldn't sustain anymore. Tucker and DeLorean seem to be some good examples of that. Perhaps the big three had something to do with that. You think?
May have been. The thing I'll say, Tuckers are very, very rare, but there's some cool cars.
Number 12. American Motor Corporation, AMC, which operated from 1954 to 1987. AMC was founded as a result of a merger between Hudson Motor Company and Nash Kelvinator Corporation. It was the largest corporate merger in the U.S. history at the time. In the late 1950s, they began focusing on compact, fuel-efficient cars, a bold and unique decision that would pay dividends in the 1960s. AMC's Jeeps would keep the company afloat through the 1970s, and the rest of the line aged ungracefully. Renault, buying $15 million in stock in the early 80s, couldn't keep them afloat. Chrysler recognized that buying them in the late 80s as a way to grab the profitable Jeep line.
Whenever Chrysler first bought Jeep, they were a great company. They kept their vehicles great for a while, but now Jeep, unfortunately, along with the rest of Chrysler, is in business with Fiat, and the cars are just not really good anymore, which is a really sad thing to me. And number 13, Saturn, operating from 1985 to 2010. When Saturn was founded in Spring Hill, Tennessee, it was called a new kind of car company. It was a private, employee-owned company that operated separately from GM and enjoyed much more freedom than GM's other divisions. Its cars sold well, but not well enough. Other divisions were also resentful of Saturn's unique status. In 2004, the unique arrangement Saturn had enjoyed with General Motors was dissolved. This was the beginning of the end for them. They became just another division of General Motors, sharing platforms with other brands and making the same cars with different skins. And you know, this one is really kind of sad to me because the first Saturns that came out were actually really nice cars. They were fast, they were reliable, and then they were just like any other GM company whenever they were dissolved. Really sad.
We hope you enjoyed this list of 13 American car companies that are now gone.
Tell us which company you wish was still around or what your least favorite company was.
And perhaps if you owned any of these cars. Thanks again for watching.
If you have an idea for a new video, tell us in the comments. We'll mention you if we do it.
We hope you have an awesome day.
And please be kind to each other.